Good day, good afternoon, everybody, wherever you are. Maybe it's the morning, the afternoon, or lunchtime, or evening, and you're already having a nice sundowner. So welcome to this startup grind, especially in the months of ST Women. And just a little bit to recap is that we here at the Startup Grind would like to give companies everywhere the education opportunities they need to build, grow, and scale their companies. And for that, we stick some values, some objectives for ourselves. This means is that we believe in making friends and not contacts. It's not the pure networking. And further on, we believe that if we give first and not taking, because you always get what you give. And finally, we believe in helping others before helping yourself. So this now, without further ado, I would like to welcome our first ST Women Month fireside chatter. Normally, we should have had this fireside chat already a few times ago, but it never worked out, and always in the month of May. So first of all, welcome, Larissa. Welcome.
Thank you, Steve.
So thank you very much for accepting to this fireside chat. And just to start a little bit, for those who don't know Larissa, I mean, you gave, if one looks at your profile, you're quite a focused person, aren't you?
Mm-hmm.
So,
well, okay, go ahead, please.
So, how would you describe yourself in business terms?
In business terms, I like to try new things. Is that a business term?
Yes, I mean, that's the thing we are all looking for. So.
Exactly. I get bored easily and try new things. I don't know if that's a business term, but here we go. That's me.
That's you, and that's good, because, I mean, if we look back a little bit at your profile, you grew up more or less in the entrepreneurship environment, or not?
True.
How did it all start? I mean, how did you get the first contact with entrepreneurship? Or what there was how shall I say, what impressed you most?
I think the thing that really struck me most was the flexibility of being able to work wherever you needed to work. And I'm making sure to say wherever you needed to work, not wanted to work. Because work was always somehow involved. There was always, when we were on vacation, my parents both worked. But they were able to work wherever we needed to go or wanted to go. So that was nice. And I kind of appreciated the fact that you could, start working at 8 a.m. in the morning, but be on the beach at 5 p.m. if you wanted to, or during the summer holidays. So that was nice. So I think that's the thing that kind of have fun. I loved as a kid. And then afterwards, just seeing the respect that people had towards you because they felt like you did something that not a lot of people were able to do kind of was nice too.
Okay. But I guess, I mean, this freedom is what everybody sees, this big freedom to do, but not really what you like, but to create something, to be able to bring something to life. But this doesn't come free, because for me, there doesn't exist anything like free beer or free lunch. There's always somebody who pays the tab. When did you realize that?
Maybe just to come back careful, because so my parents never chose to be entrepreneurs. They had to be entrepreneurs because otherwise there was no money. So that was very clear. Just so they were entrepreneurs out of necessity, not because they just wanted to create something. That came later, like the opportunity to create something, but it was more a survival skill in the beginning. So coming back to your question, when did I realize that, so there was less freedom? That's the question, right? Then you thought that then there actually is. So it's great to create, but you also need to do the stuff that you don't like. That's the question, right?
Yes, more or less. Yeah. because you have some constraints. It's nice to be creative like an artist, but you need, shall I say, a sponsor.
Sure. Listen, as you said, there's no free lunch, but being free, is an illusion. You're never free. I mean, unless you live all alone, like Robinson Crusoe on an island, and you can decide whatever you want at that point. Maybe then you're free. But we're living in a society, in a community where so you're not really free. There's laws, there's regulations, there's things that you need. You need to eat, you need to sleep, you need to, whatever. So in essence, now it's a philosophical question, are we ever free, right? So in my view, you're never really free. You always have contingencies, you always have constraints, such as your clients, your providers, the people that you employ. All of this kind of has to work together, and you can't decide, hey, I want you as a client, and then the client comes, or hey, I want you as a provider, and then the provider decides yes. It's still a decision that everybody has to make, and it's the same thing with employees and shareholders. So an entrepreneur isn't very free. They choose which shackles they want to have more freely than maybe somebody else. Even though I'm not even sure if that isn't an illusion. So now we're becoming really philosophical.
Okay, let's get back to the real stuff, to the real news. The thing is, I mean, okay, you grew up and you saw the necessity and you saw how it evolved. Yourself, did you have the choice to be, on the one hand, to become employed or to do something by your own? What was your first choice you were able to make?
That's a good question. I think, if I don't take into account what I've done during my studies, because it doesn't feel like that's the thing that really feels like adulthood. That was more playing around with entrepreneurship. The first time I really had to decide was really when the family business was in bad shape, and I had to decide between a job that I was guaranteed at a bank, because I studied banking and finance. So in essence, I wanted to go and work in a bank, and helping out the family business. So I think that's when it really happened that, okay, now I really have to make a choice. Do I want to be, part of the family and help out the family business, or do I not want to do that and just become an employee? And then my duty to the family just, was bigger. And that's how I ended up where I am right now.
And when you stepped into the family business, very often one says, okay, you choose your clients, but you have friends, but never make friends or family. Never make clients out of your friends or families. So, how was that? Because on the one hand, if you become independent, either like you have the opportunity to step into a family business, or you create something from scratch. And you did both a little bit. And if you look back, what would you say was harder? Was it harder to step into something, for example, let's say the family business, or to start something from scratch?
So I think for me, that's an easy answer. It was much harder to come into the family business because, your role was defined before you even got there. And the way that people perceived you was defined, and there was much less creative purposes. You basically had to build on the things that were already there. So I found that a lot harder than to actually create something on your own where you're responsible from A to Z and you can shape it. And there is no narrative yet. You can shape the narrative, you can paint the picture, you can build the product or the service. That's a lot more creative, and in my eyes, a lot more fun.
And when did you have this impetus to start something from scratch? When did that arrive? Or what make you push it to it? Did you had an idea? Did you see a need? Did you just want to do something different? What was it? What was the driving force?
I think it's a very typical entrepreneurship sickness, which is that you see in every problem, you see an opportunity for a business. So I find that a lot of entrepreneurs have that. They see somebody has an issue, and instead of seeing an issue, they see a business opportunity. And it was the same for me. I saw an issue which I believed I could solve, and that's how and then having that confidence in yourself, thinking that you can actually do it, probably comes with experience too. Either that or you're really cocky. Either way is fine. Just makes you, it just becomes so natural. It's not even a question that you ask yourself. It's just like, okay, I need to do this because I know how to do this. This is an issue and I want to solve it. And I want to showcase to the world, myself, and to the community that I can do this. I can make this happen because I know I can.
Mm-hmm. And how did you go about it? Did you jump fully into it, or did you go step by step? I mean, in your free spare time, developing the new business, taking the need and developing the solution in your free spare time, or did you immediately fully stepped into it?
I think for me, it was a bit of maybe unconventional. Nowadays, I would probably do step by step, but I was doing my MBA, and during my MBA, this kind of happened in parallel. So the timing was just perfect in that sense. But if I would start something again now, I would definitely do it step by step, because I think, and I know, having worked with a lot of startups, that is, for me, that is the best way to do it, because I can build things without compromising my safety net, my financial safety net. I'm in my house. I have 2 kids. I'm married. And at a certain age, I have a mortgage to pay. So all of that makes me hungrier. So I think as I'm hungrier, I think that's good. It's good to be hungry. It's good to be, to go out there without taking too much risk. But that is everybody has to decide themselves what their risk level is. Mine, now that I'm 40, is lower than when I was 25, of course.
That's true. And that's always a question. I see already some questions popping up, and just a reminder to those out there who watch us live, you can ask your questions in the chat or in the special Q&A feature. There's one which popped up now is, okay, you saw the need, you had a solution in mind, you went to it, and how did you go about it? I mean, very often the resources, for example, last month was funding month. That was about funding. But when I say resources, it's everything. Resources is not only the financial part, but you need the operational, you need the support, eventually, and so on. Mm-hmm. How did you go about that? Did you have it on hand, or did your solution enable you to do it to bootstrap yourself a little bit?
No bootstrapping. I'm a firm believer. Even our family company was always bootstrapped. We didn't even have a loan. So I'm a firm believer in that. Of course, I'm not. I don't work in anything like biotech, which there's no way you can bootstrap biotech. So I'm lucky to be interested and good at things which you can easily bootstrap. But you build. So I also teach at the university in the Master of Entrepreneurship. And one of the things I always tell my students is you build a network, right? You have to start building a network around the subject that you're interested in. And that can change, of course. So it could be from, doing a bar to, selling services. And whatever you're interested in, you start building a network, and that's going to take some time. The stronger your network, the more successful you'll be. So for me, also as an investor, that's the one thing I've learned. It doesn't matter. Again, just take that with a grain of salt. That is my learning, of course. It doesn't really matter how good your idea is or how great your team is. The most important thing is for you to be super convinced about your own idea and be really good at selling your ideas to other people. So building a network in essence. So that for me is the same thing. It probably takes me a year, especially if I to totally leave my old, sector or theme and build a new one. Probably a year to build. Some people take longer, but if you have a good network, that's exactly what you need. That's going to, to get you where you want to get to.
And then this first business you built out of scratch. If I'm not mistaken, you left it or you handed it over or it stopped or something like that. How did it happen? Because when I look back to myself and also with the other fireside chatters we had, is always there comes a time where you need to make the decision. What do you do with your baby? Because it grows up. It's not a baby anymore. And how did you approach that? Was it pure rational, or was it more the gut feeling? Or did you have a little bit support from the network or your surroundings?
I think, again, network is important, but it's a personal decision. When you're a builder or you're a constructor, when things become fixed, you're less interested in it, So for me specifically, for this company or this concept that I built, I saw that the market was shifting and changing, and that the way that I build it wasn't necessary anymore. The market had shifted, so I needed to shift as well, which was fine. And then I asked myself the hard question, which was, okay, am I ready to invest another 5 years in shifting this whole concept around to the concept that the market needs? Because of course you're in the market, you know what the market needs. That's what you're there for, right? You understand that. And I decided not to, because I knew what I needed to do and it wasn't attractive enough anymore. And I had other options. That is the beauty of having a great network. You have other options. And then all of a sudden another option came up, which I found a lot more fascinating. So it's just a choice, that's the beauty of having choice. If you don't have a choice, that kind of sucks. But if you have choice, then you kind of look at it and rationally think about it. Okay, do I really want to do this another couple of years? Because that's the truth. That's what's going to take. Or do I want to do something completely different and explore a new facet of myself, which I haven't explored beforehand? And I went for the second one.
Okay. That is a little bit the entrepreneurial background, but you also have investor. You also were involved in investments, in supporting founders. How did that came? Was it already during that you were grinding your own business, or did it came later? And what pushed? Not really pushing, but what attracted you to that part of the business cycle?
I kind of fell into it by chance, to be quite honest. Through the MBA that I did, I met somebody, again through a network, who showed me what an investor could be, because you can only start X projects yourself, but being able to catalyze other people, that sounded cool, that sounded nice. And of course you can catalyze people through helping them, through your network, through following them through your journey, or doing all of that plus giving them money and then actually reaping some profits of the fact that you're actually helping people. So it kind of appealed to me in that instance that first of all, I was able to learn shitloads of things, because you have to, understand people, you have to understand the business model. You can ask a lot of questions, and I love asking questions. So I love that about being an investor, because you can ask the stupidest question and people still answer you. So that was really nice. And it opened up a whole new network of people and a whole new learning opportunity. And by chance, I just had finished working in corporate M&A. So it kind of, doing that corporate M&A kind of pushed me into saying, oh, you know what, I can do this on my own. I know now how it works in a corporation. Why shouldn't I do this on my own? So I kind of fell into it, and it totally appealed to me. And I kind of loved how this whole system worked and how it needed to be changed and modeled and get more diversity in it. So it appealed to my sense of community and helping and democratizing. So kind of ticked all my boxes at that point.
Okay. And if you look at the first investment you did, there's a saying, as a private investor, a small private investor, you have to do 10 investments. 7 are debt immediately, 2 are living debts, and one is paying for the other. So your first one, I guess you still remember the first investment you did, is was there, let's say, was there more passion, or were still already rational about it when doing the investment or during the investment process?
Yeah, it's a great question. No, I was totally passionate. I made all the mistakes any business angel can make, and of course I lost all my money. So very typical. One of the reasons I became so active in Alban is because I lost all my money and I made all the mistakes because there wasn't anybody there not to tell me not to do this. So absolutely. I just fell in love with the idea and the person, but didn't take anything else into account. So I didn't do real good due diligence, and I just assumed they would do the same things as I was doing entrepreneur, which was, of course, a huge mistake. And but it's an expensive learning curve.
It's a school of hard knocks. I mean, and I know it myself, and especially Alban. I mean, the idea was really to federate the private individuals and to educate the so-called virgin angels. Let's call it like that. But the other thing is, when you invest, when you look at an investment, or when you looked at an investment, it doesn't matter. Do you also get involved? I mean, what did a founder get from you? Did they get the bank account, a part of the bank account of Larissa, or did they get the experience, the hands-on of Larissa? What did they get?
Okay, good question. I think it depends on what stage I was as a business angel. So I would say at the beginning, they would get my time and money. Then they would and then second stage, Larissa as a business angel, they will only get my money because I was spreading myself like lots of other places because I found so many things I found really fascinating. And at the end, now I'm at the stage where I say, no, you get my experience, you get me, you get my network. And then later on, you get my money when I'm really interested. So I completely changed my ways around, also learning, from what I believe were my mistakes. But for me, I feel that I'm much more an important resource as a person that can open doors and, help people figure out whether they're on the right track. And when I see that they're really on the right track, then I'm happy to give some money. And I'm not doing it vice versa anymore. So this is my personal learning.
That's good, because the other thing is now coming up. It's also linked a little bit to the previous months, the founding months, where we had for mangrove. And the question is, okay, as a founder, what would be your suggestions? Let's call it suggestions or ideas or comments to prepare oneself for getting funding. And how is there a specific way to prepare oneself on the one hand to find the funding, and on the other hand, but also to accept it and to live with it? It doesn't matter which kind of funding, if it's the 3Fs, if it's I don't know, going into private equity, into corporate. It doesn't matter what, according to your experience, which is suggest to a founder. The question comes from a founder.
It's a good question. I would say you have to be ready to let go, because when you start having other people involved, they become stakeholders and you are bound to them. So if you're not ready to let go of your baby and not ready to let go of, micromanaging everything, I think then you shouldn't get any funding. I mean, also you need to understand that if you get funding, you will have to have an exit. So it's not like you're building a family business out of this, or something that your children can take over, your grandchildren. That is something you need to know as well. I mean, unless you get a loan from a bank, which is a completely different thing. But you get people who want to help you because they want your money. I mean, that's it. It's not philanthropy. So being able to say, yes, I'm building this because I want to make money, and I want to make money with other people, and I want to give them part of what I'm building because they gave me money when I needed it. That's for me is letting go,
Mhm.
letting go that this is not going to be your baby forever and ever anymore.
Mhm. And then there is a question. I interpret also the questions. I mean, I try to put them into our discussion at the right time. So there is also something, a question around, okay, nowadays in Luxembourg, we have a good cottage industry about the startup hype and buzzing and so on, and cocooning the founders. And so is on the one hand, okay, it's probably a good thing. It raises the awareness that you have so much support and people talking about it and so on. But on the other hand, is there not a risk of creating frustration because people do forget the school of hard knocks? They are pampered, cocooned. I'm exaggerating. I'm really exaggerating. Pampered, cocooned to launch themselves and so on. And then very quickly or less quickly, they come to the wall and then they see it as it is. How did you see this evolution, or do you share this point of view in that part?
Listen, I think the pendulum always swings a bit too far, so I don't know, 20 years ago, nobody talked about entrepreneurship, and entrepreneurship was just, either your family business or you're dead in the water, in essence. You don't know what to do, so you become an entrepreneur. And that obviously has shifted, which I think is good. So in essence, it's good that saying that I'm building my own business doesn't mean I suck at finding a job, because that's what it used to say. So I think that's a positive. Now, the whole hype around it is, first of all, there's a lot more in the press than actually happens in Luxembourg. I mean, my personal opinion, again, I'm always giving my personal opinions here, but there's not that much happening. I mean, there's a bunch of things here. You can find a bit of money there. But there's not a million things that you can do, I mean, except meet up some people. But real programs with real money, it's still not that much that you can find. So we do have a couple of catalyzers. Then about the learning experience, I mean, if you're smart about things, you will inform yourself and get some people in your network that have gone through this and understand what it actually means. I mean, it's the same thing as finding a new job. You're not going to go and work for business A if you know nothing about business A. How do you know that you'll like it? You have no clue. So you talk to people who work in business A or work for business A to understand whether that's something that could suit you. Now, if people are so blue-eyed that they just run around and try everything that they want to because they think it might suit them on the paper, honestly, I think that's a learning experience. They need to learn that things on paper are not the same thing as reality. So good for them if they can learn and not spend any money on it. Good for them, right? But I understand where the question comes from. I think people need to make their own mistakes and learn from them, as long as they don't ruin themselves while doing it, which I think is one of the things I'm really worried about, is that people put a lot of money into ideas which we know is going to completely fail. That is really just sad. I mean, I know people who lost their houses because they bet on the wrong horse as an entrepreneur, and that's just sad. I think there needs to be mechanisms that help people to figure out, is that really something that makes sense, and how much money can I really pour into the business? But besides that, all these young people trying something out, why not? It's like university. You need to try things out and figure out that it's not for you, or if it's for you, awesome, and then you learn something.
Okay. It's just time is a little bit running out. So if you have a question, now it's the time to push your last question. But in the meantime, I take another one is, okay, you were a little bit touching about the size of the Luxembourgish market. And most of the businesses we encounter here at Startup Grind, they came to a point that, okay, this is it here in Luxembourg. We need to grow. Or in order to grow, or to develop or to sustain, we need to broaden our market. This means, between quotation marks, going internationally. And there is immediately a different ball game. Do you see anything a founder shouldn't do eventually? The do's and don'ts of broadening the market, either horizontally, vertically, or geographically?
Okay, yeah, a couple of things. First of all, don't attack a new market because the market that you're in sucks. Okay, because I've seen that a lot. Oh, maybe if I do this, then something will work. You know, do a real market analysis beforehand. Don't just do it out of opportunity, like, oh, this sounds good, let's do it, but really think about it strategically. Expanding internationally or expanding your product needs to be strategic. Okay, you need to think about, okay, what does that mean? Can I service? What about customer support? How am I going to sell this? Do I need to, do I need to open an office there? Can I do it from here? What does it bring to me? Do I make more money? Is the margins better? So you need to really think about this strategically, because it's going to take a lot of work going into a new market. People think differently, they talk differently, they buy differently. So it's not just copy pasting what you've done in one market in the other market. That always fails, honestly. Like, even big companies fail in that. So that's the first thing. And the second thing is the same thing when it comes to building new products around it. If you have a good nucleus and you start building out because that is what your clients ask for, smart decision. That is a strategic, smart decision, right? Because you can have the one client and you're now making more money with the same client. So that's smart. But if you're doing it because the market that you're in actually sucks, that means you haven't done your market analysis thoroughly enough the first time. And you really need to think about, what did I do wrong the first time? So I'm not doing it the second time and just, getting back into that loop of hell. Does that make sense, Steve?
Yeah, for me it makes sense. And I guess also for the person who asked the question. So time's up. Thank you very much. It goes very quick. And the other thing is, we are not Startup Grind without being Startup Grind. Very often we ask our fireside chatters, okay, if you had a crystal ball, what would you like to see in there? This means, what could eventually the Startup Grind community assist you in? Or what would you like to see in the crystal ball happening?
I think that's a really hard question. I never thought about it that way. If I could look into the future, what do I want to see?
Yes.
How about the weather? That would be nice.
Yeah, okay.
I could sell this to agriculture and become really rich.
Yeah. But, not only agriculture, I guess.
Yes, that's true. That lots of the weather. Whoever, isn't there a saying, whoever knows the weather and has the market or whatever, something like this. Anyways, so my crystal ball, the weather, please.
Okay, great. On that positive note, thank you, Larissa, for having played the game.
Sure.
And for all of you, thank you for having assisted us. And also thanks to all the partners who enabled this in kind. And if you look us now, you can eventually join us at the networking. And if you are looking us on our channel, just get in contact with us and join us for next Startup Grind. Thank you very much. Goodbye.